At the end of Act 4 of Blanche of the Most Holy Agony, Blanche and the other sisters, in the absence of the prioress, who was called to Paris by her superiors, all took the vow of martyrdom. Immediately afterwards, Blanche, in a panic, fled the convent and returned to the de la Force mansion, her home in Paris. In the early scenes of Act 5, we learn that her father is arrested and he's eventually guillotined. The citizens who now occupy the de la Force mansion treat Blanche like a servant, and they beat her and mistreat her. Mother Mary of the Incarnation has been sent to seek her out, and she finds her at the de la Force mansion and tells her that they should meet at the home of Rose Ducour. This is the niece of the chaplain of the convent, and Rose will help them return to Compiègne. Before Blanche gets there, she learns that the sisters have been arrested. So I'm going to start reading now from scene 9 of Act 5, the final act of this screenplay. Blanche arrives at the house of Rose Ducour, out of breath, half out of her mind. She sits down on a chair, holds her head in her hands. She repeats over and over, "We must save them. They must not be killed. We must save them no matter what the cost. My God, they must not be killed." Rose Ducour and Mother Mary rush toward her and surround her. Mother Mary, "What are you talking about?" Blanche, in a broken voice, but one in which we can already sense her outrage and horror. "I was doing my shopping at the market, just like every morning, when an old woman told me, 'Our sisters are in prison?'" "Yes." Mother Mary, "God be praised." Silence. Mother Mary's lips are moving. We understand that she is praying. Blanche keeps her head in her hands, but when Mother Mary says, "God be praised," she clearly flinches. Mother Mary touches her shoulder. "Sister Blanche, we must go to Compiègne." Blanche raises her head. "It's true. Oh, Mother Mary, if there is any means of saving them, it seems to me that this time I will find the courage." Mother Mary, "It's not a question of saving them, but of joining them in accomplishing the vow which we freely made only a few days ago." "What? Will we let them die without trying to help them at all?" "What matters, my little daughter, is not to let them die without us." "Ha! As if they have any need of us to die. Is it a daughter of Carmel who talks like this?" "Death, death, is that all you ever talk about? Will you all never tire of killing or dying? Will you never be sated with other people's blood or your own?" "There is horror only in the crime, my daughter. It is by the sacrifice of innocent lives that this horror is erased, the crime itself restored to the order of divine charity." Blanche stamps her foot. "I don't want them to die. I don't want to die." Before Mother Mary has a chance to restrain her, she rushes out. At the door, she almost collides with the priest, who shouts out with joy, "Dear Sister Blanche, here you are. God be praised." But Blanche, completely beside herself, gives the priest a wild look. She abruptly escapes him and disappears. Scene 10. Chaplain, "What just happened with Sister Blanche?" Mother Mary, "You saw her? She was extremely upset. She left without saying a word to me." Mother Mary smiles. "She is still of a mind to rebel like a child, but it doesn't matter. From this point on, nothing will be able to separate her from the sweet mercy of Jesus Christ." A pause. "So I will leave for Compiègne alone." The priest remains silent. "Do you disapprove?" The chaplain says, "No, I just think that it would be advisable to wait until we are better informed about what is happening. Your sisters are prisoners, granted, but it is not at all sure that they will be condemned to death. Might not your intervention risk making their situation worse? Once more, Father, if we always act with this prudence, what will remain of our vow of martyrdom? Mother, you pronounced this vow under obedience, and it is under obedience that you must fulfill it. Write to your prioress and ask her what you should do." Scene 11. The prison, early morning. It is still rather dark. Some of the sisters are sitting with their backs to the wall. The little King of Glory has been placed on a shoddy table. I should explain about the little King of Glory. He's come up in other scenes that I've skipped over. In the convent, there was always this statue of the child Jesus dressed in a royal mantle and with a crown on his head that they all referred to as the little King of Glory. And this was sort of a focus of their reverence for Jesus. The little King of Glory has been placed on a shoddy table. There are a few withered flowers in a cracked vase. The table is covered by a white handkerchief, too narrow for it. A single stub of a candle, half consumed, is burning. The religious come in the darkness in twos or threes to kneel before the statue. We can hear sighs, which could also be stifled sobs. Several sisters are coughing. The dawning day is cold and full of anxiety. A little apart, in the corner of the room to the right of the table, the prioress prostrates herself. Sister Constance, who has just been kneeling in front of the little King of Glory, cries out in pain as she rises from her knees. Sister Valentine, what's the matter, Sister Constance? I slept under the skylight last night, and now I've got a crick. My poor neck. She rubs it with both hands, laughing. Sister St. Charles with a start. Oh, Sister Constance. Sister Alice, just because your nerves are so steady, why shake the nerves of the others? Sister Constance suddenly understands and shudders in turn. My God, Sister Martha, cutting her off in a voice that is somewhat forced. I didn't sleep at all, in a lower voice. Our poor old Mother Gerald snored all night. Sister Gertrude, it's her catarrh. Oh, I'm well acquainted with that. My cell was next to hers. Sister St. Charles starts to cry. Sister Felicity, why are you crying, Sister St. Charles? Sister St. Charles, more and more unnerved. Why? Why do you say my cell was next to hers? Why talk about our dear house as if we'll never see it again? The prioress discreetly claps her hands, and the nuns group themselves around her. The day is just beginning to break. My daughters, our first night in prison is over. It was the most difficult, but even so we have come to the end of it. The next will find us completely familiarized with our new condition, which, besides, is not new for us. In short, it is only a change of decor. Nothing can rob us of a freedom that we long since have divested ourselves of. Sister Clare, it is to God that our freedom belongs, but your reverence remains the usufructuary of it by virtue of the office to which we have voluntarily and freely appointed her. Prioress says, what do you mean, Sister Clare? I mean that, even though we have divested ourselves of our freedom, your reverence is responsible for the custody and disposition of it, and so she cannot put our fate entirely in God's hands. Other old nuns, that's true. There is a murmuring from the young religious. Sister Clare turns to them and says, my little daughters, it is possible that at your age obedience still resembles a soft pillow in which all you have to do is rest your head. But we know, we older religious, that obedience, much as it seems so different from commanding, carries its own responsibility. Yes, my little daughters, it is just as difficult to learn to obey as to command. To obey is not to let oneself be passively led, like a blind man following his dog. An old religious like myself wishes for nothing better than to die under obedience, but under an obedience that is active and conscious. We dispose of nothing in this world, that is understood. It is none the less true that our death is our death. No one can die in our place. Sister St. Charles, no longer able to hold back. Why must we always hear talk of dying? Why should we die? Are we not innocent? Sister Constance, be quiet, Sister Charles. Sister St. Charles. Sister Matilda, are we even so sure that we are being sacrificed because of hatred of our faith as true martyrs? Or are we being condemned by mistake for offenses we are innocent of? Sister St. Charles, she is right. What have we to do with all this politics? Prioress, peace, my daughters. Let me first answer Sister Clare. I know that I will have charge of you all until the end, my daughter. I have no intention at all of shirking that. Sister Clare, is it the intention of your reverence to speak to the court alone in our name? And if that is not the case, how far can we go in defending ourselves without breaking the vow we made? Sister Anne says, yes, will we have the right to defend ourselves? Will we be condemned without having been heard? Sister Valentine says, would we not be greatly ashamed to argue for our poor lives before assassins of priests and looters of churches? Prioress, raising her voice a little, there is no shame in justifying oneself even before judges without faith. The innocent person who justifies herself witnesses more to the truth than to herself. She is silent a moment. It is obvious that she is praying. My daughters, you pronounced this vow of martyrdom in my absence, but whether or not it was right, God would not permit that an act so generous would only serve now to trouble your consciences. So I assume this vow. I am from now on responsible for it before His Divine Majesty. I am and will remain, whatever happens, sole judge of its fulfillment. Yes, I take on the burden of it and leave its merit to you, since I didn't pronounce it myself. Do not trouble yourselves about it any further, my daughters. I have always been responsible for you in this world, and I am not in the mood today to consider myself quit of anything. Be at peace. I will do my best for your lives and for your souls. And at this moment, when I feel myself more than ever to be your mother, the first are almost as precious to me as the second. If I am wrong in this, God will pardon me. The mothers of the sainted martyrs, after all, are seldom in the calendar. A young religious who had been sitting with her head in her hands advances and kneels to kiss the hand of the Reverend Mother. Tears are still flowing down her face, but now there is an expression of simple, childlike confidence. Sister Gertrude, with your reverence, we will never fear anything. Other nuns approach. One of the older ones says, would your reverence deign to bless us? They all kneel. The prioress gives the blessing. Afterwards, the conversations begin again, but in a completely different tone than before. The mood is almost joyful. Sister Constance says, "And what will become of Sister Blanche?" The prioress, who has overheard. "On that subject I know no more than you, my little daughter." Sister Constance, "She will come back." Sister St. Charles, "How can you be so sure, Sister Constance?" "Because," she stops disconcerted, "because," then very embarrassed but incapable of going back on what she started to say, "because of a dream I had." Everyone laughs. Sister Felicity says, "Reverend Mother, do you think that we will be judged today?" "I have no idea." Sister St. Charles, "Are they going to interrogate us one after the other? And will that take a long time?" Sister Alice, "And if we, will they permit us to go to confession?" Sister Constance, pointing out a young nun who has just grown pale and put her head in her hands, puts a finger to her lips. Sister St. Charles, shrugging her shoulders, "Bah, we aren't frail little girls after all. My God, if the chaplain can only be there on the road, I don't ask for more than that." Prior says, Come, my daughters, let's put these imaginary events aside. Nothing is pressing. I can well imagine that the youngest of you at least will get out of this fix without harm. If these people aren't monsters, or if they know something of our holy rule, who else could they hold responsible but me alone? Several voices, "Oh, nothing will separate us any more from your reverence." Sister Clare says, "God knows that I would not willingly trade my lot with that of our Mother Mary of the Incarnation or of our Sister Blanche." Mother Gerald says, "Alas, they will probably be arrested also." Sister Clare, "Exactly. How could we have the nerve to complain when we are all united here together? How they must envy us. How they must judge themselves more unfortunate than we are." In the next scene, we learn that the court has condemned them all to death indeed. All 16 Carmelites, including Mother Mary of the Incarnation, who's been condemned in absentia for having formed counter-revolutionary associations, having maintained correspondence with zealots, and having kept documents destructive to liberty. Scene 13. The religious gather in a little courtyard inside the prison. The prioress addresses them. "My daughters, I desired with all my heart to save you. Yes, I would have wished that this chalice might pass from you, for I have loved you from the first day as a mother according to nature. And what mother willingly sacrifices her children, even if it be to the Divine Majesty himself? If I've done wrong, God will see to it. Such as I am, you are my fortune, and I am not one of those who throw their fortune out the window. But now it doesn't matter, my daughters. Here we are at the end of our term. All that is left is to die. Blessed be God, who makes of the execution we are going to endure together as it were the last office of our dear community. My children, the hour has come to remind you of the vow which you have pronounced. Up until this moment, I wanted to answer for it by myself. From this point on, I can only take the part that comes to me, and still I should claim it humbly in the name of our esteemed Mother Mary of the Incarnation, for it is on her behalf that I carry it out, unworthy as I am. My daughters, I put you solemnly under obedience, one last time, once and for all, with my maternal benediction." Scene 15, setting is Rose Ducour's apartment. The priest arrives greatly distraught. "They've all been condemned to death, Mother Mary. All of them?" "All. God." A silence, and the chaplain says, "It will happen today, no doubt, or tomorrow. What are you doing, Mother?" "I can't let them die without me. What does your will matter in this affair? God chooses or reserves whom he pleases. I made the vow of martyrdom. It is to God that you made it, and it is to him that you have to answer, not to your companions. If it pleases God to lift it from you, he only takes back what belongs to him." "I am dishonored." That is the word I was waiting for. Oh, I don't condemn it. Indeed, coming from you, it is the cry of a nature in agony. This is the blood. Yes, this is the blood that God demands from you, and that you must shed. You would have given with joy the kind that flows in your veins. You would have poured it out like water. But every drop of this sort that is wrung from you will cost you more than your life. Mother Mary of the Incarnation remains standing in the attitude of someone who gathers all her strength to withstand a torture almost beyond enduring. In the end, their eyes will search for me in vain. Think only of another pair of eyes on which you should fix your own, says the chaplain. Final scene. The scene is the Place de la Révolution. The Carmelites get down from the cart, which has stopped at the base of the scaffold. In the first row of the compact crowd, we can recognize the priest in disguise, wearing a Phrygian cap. He murmurs the words of absolution, makes a furtive sign of the cross, and swiftly disappears. Immediately, the sisters chant the Salve Regina, then the Veni Creator. Their voices are clear and very steady, assured. The crowd, struck by their composure, is silent. The camera keeps its focus on the base of the scaffold, where the sisters go up, one by one, continually singing, But as each disappears, the choir diminishes. No more than 2 voices now. Now only 1. But at that instant, coming from another corner of the great square, a new voice rises, even more distinct, more resolute than the others, but having for all that something childlike about it. And we see advancing towards the scaffold through the dumbfounded crowd that makes way for her, the tiny figure of Blanche de la Force, singing. Her face seems divested of every trace of fear. Deo Patris et Gloria et Filio quia mortuis surrexit ac Paraclito. But she doesn't get a chance to finish. There is a sudden movement of the crowd. A group of women surround Blanche. They push her towards the scaffold. We lose sight of her, and suddenly her voice, like the voices of her sisters, which had been cut off one by one, is silenced. The end. Not quite finished. Now I just want to make a few comments. Just to reiterate what I stated at the beginning of this series, this work had its origin in the creative genius of Gertrude von Lefort, who wrote the novel The Last on the Scaffold in the 1930s. It was adapted for the screen by another great writer, Georges Bernanos. These are names to be reckoned with in the field of world literature. They're not nobodies. But the story remains relatively unknown in the Anglophone world, except for opera buffs who know it through the opera composed by Poulenc. My hope in making this series of videos is that it might come to the attention of someone with the necessary resources or contacts to turn this script into a major motion picture. You often hear actresses complaining that typical Hollywood fare tends to be lacking in strong, interesting female characters, in really juicy roles for women. It's hard to imagine a more female-centric story than this one. I, for one, would love to see what really talented actresses could do with roles like Blanche de la Force, Sister Constance, Mother Mary of the Incarnation, and the 2 prioresses. Maybe it's a vain hope, I don't know. But I welcome any comments or questions, any suggestions that you might have. You can reach me at andydsteph@gmail.com. This is my email address. Have you got that? Can you see that? Okay. And thank you for watching. God bless.